I stood frozen as my sister Amber squealed with delight, clutching the $6,200 Gucci bag to her chest, while I stared down at my $1 holiday card complete with the Dollar Tree price tag still on the back. 25 years of being second best crashed over me in that moment. My parents beamed at Amber, filming her reaction for social media while completely missing my quiet devastation. Something finally snapped inside me. Without a word, I stood up, walked outside into the snowy night, and left behind a family that had never truly seen me. My name is Rochelle Anderson, 29 years old, and a senior accountant at Davis & Franklin Financial. I've always been the responsible one, the practical one, the one who worked hard for everything I have. Looking back, I can see the pattern started early. But when you're a child, you don't question why your sister gets a bounce house professional face painter and custom cake for her birthday, while you get pizza and a homemade cake with crooked frosting. Amber just needs more attention, my mother would explain whenever I dared to point out the discrepancy. She's more sensitive than you. You're our rock, Rochelle. You can handle anything. And I believed them. I took pride in being the strong one, the one who didn't need coddling or special treatment. When Amber struggled in school, my parents hired tutors. When I excelled, they simply nodded and said, "We expected nothing less from you." By high school, the differences were more pronounced. Amber's Sweet 16 featured a rented ballroom and a new laptop. Mine was a backyard barbecue and practical clothes for college. Still, I told myself it was fine. I was building character. I was independent. These qualities would serve me well in life. Then came college. My parents had always told us they had college funds for both of us. When the time came, Amber went to an expensive private university, while I was encouraged to attend the state school, because it makes more financial sense for you since you're so practical. What they didn't tell me until later was that they had dipped into both our college funds for Amber's expenses. I ended up taking out student loans while working 2 jobs to make ends meet. One of those jobs was at a coffee shop near Amber's campus, so I could help her with assignments and emotional support whenever she called, often in tears over the stress of it all. "You're such a good sister," my mother would say. "Amber is so lucky to have you." But who did I have? Despite all this, I persevered. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at Davis & Franklin and worked my way up steadily. I lived frugally, made loan payments religiously, and even managed to start a modest retirement account. Meanwhile, Amber bounced between jobs, apartments, and relationships, always with my parents' financial safety net beneath her. This year had been different, though. After 6 years at the firm, I finally received the promotion I'd been working toward. Senior accountant with a significant salary increase and my own office. For once, I thought my parents might actually be proud of me. They might see that all my hard work and independence had paid off. I spent weeks selecting Christmas gifts for everyone. For my father, a rare first edition of his favorite author that I'd tracked down through a collector. For my mother, a cashmere sweater and a spa day at the place she'd always mentioned wanting to try. For Amber, concert tickets to see her favorite band. These gifts cost nearly a month of my discretionary income, but I wanted this Christmas to be special. I wanted just once to see their faces light up because of something I had done. 2 weeks before Christmas, I was helping my mother remotely troubleshoot an issue with her email when a new message notification popped up. Car dealership, final paperwork for Amber's graduation present. I shouldn't have clicked on it, but I did. The email confirmed the final payment on a brand new luxury sedan for Amber, a graduation present from my parents. The total amount made my stomach drop nearly $50,000. Just 3 months earlier, I had asked my parents if they could help with the last $10,000 of my student loans, since I had an opportunity to buy into a condo building. "We just don't have that kind of money right now, honey," my father had said apologetically. "You're doing so well on your own. We're so proud of how independent you are." I closed the email, finished helping my mother with her original problem, and sat in stunned silence in my apartment for hours afterward. All the little moments of inequality throughout my life suddenly aligned into a clear pattern that I could no longer ignore. Still, I held on to hope. Perhaps there was an explanation. Perhaps this Christmas would be different. Perhaps finally they would see me. I arrived at my parents' suburban home on Christmas Eve, my car trunk filled with carefully wrapped presents. The house was decorated lavishly with professionally installed lights outlining the roof and windows. A designer wreath hung on the door, and when I stepped inside, I was greeted by the 12-foot Norwegian spruce that dominated the living room, decorated in a color scheme of silver and pale blue that perfectly matched Amber's Instagram aesthetic. "Rochelle, you're finally here," my mother said, giving me a quick hug before turning back to the gingerbread house she was assembling with my Aunt Susan. "Amber's been here since yesterday. She's helping your father with the turkey." I moved through the house greeting relatives and depositing my gifts under the tree which already overflowed with packages. I found Amber in the kitchen not actually helping, but sitting on a counter taking photos of Dad while he basted the turkey. "Content for my food series," she explained, barely looking up. "Dad's so photogenic in his apron." At dinner, the conversation revolved around Amber's new position at Vogue Fashion, an entry-level job she'd started just 2 weeks prior. "Tell everyone about the celebrity you met," my mother prompted, and Amber launched into a story about briefly sharing an elevator with a minor reality TV star. When my Aunt Susan finally asked about my work, I started to explain my promotion and the new corporate tax strategy I'd developed that saved our clients thousands of dollars. "That's nice, dear," my mother interrupted after 30 seconds. "Amber, tell them about the office Christmas party and that gorgeous dress you wore." After dinner, my mother showed me to my sleeping arrangements. "We converted your old bedroom into Amber's home office since she sometimes works remotely," she explained, pulling out the sofa bed in the den. "She needs a professional background for video calls, you understand." I nodded silently. My childhood bedroom, with its bookshelves still filled with my academic awards, had been transformed into a minimalist workspace featuring Amber's fashion school diploma prominently on the wall. My awards were nowhere to be seen. Despite everything, I went to bed hopeful. Christmas morning was always magical in our family. Surely tomorrow would be different. The next morning, we gathered around the tree in our pajamas, just like when we were kids. My father played Santa, distributing gifts one by one. Amber's gifts to the family were opened first. Designer scarves for our female relatives, premium whiskey for the men, and for our parents, a weekend getaway at an upscale resort. "How can you afford all this on your starter salary?" I asked, genuinely curious. Amber laughed. "I'm on a tight budget, but I wanted everyone to have something special." Later, I overheard my mother telling my grandmother, "We helped Amber with her Christmas shopping. She has such exquisite taste, but you know how entry-level positions pay these days." When my gifts were opened, the reactions were polite but underwhelming. My father glanced at his rare book and said, "This looks interesting," before setting it aside. My mother thanked me for the sweater and spa certificate, but immediately started discussing with my aunt whether the spa I'd chosen was as good as the one across town. Even Amber's reaction to the concert tickets was lukewarm. "Oh, I already saw them in September. Dad got us front row seats, remember? But thanks, I'm sure I can find someone to give these to." I swallowed my disappointment and kept smiling. Then came the moment that would change everything. My father pulled out a small, elegant bag from behind the tree. "This special gift is for our fashion industry star," he announced, handing it to Amber. The whole family gathered around as she opened it, my mother already recording with her phone. Inside was a Gucci handbag, the new season's most coveted design. "It's $6,200 retail, but we knew you needed something appropriate for your new career," my mother explained as Amber screamed in delight. "This is insane. I can't believe you did this." Amber jumped up and down, hugging the bag to her chest. "I'm going to be the envy of everyone at the office." The family applauded and gathered around to admire the luxury item. In the commotion, my father absently handed me a small envelope. "This one's for you, Rochelle." Inside was a holiday card with a generic message and my parents' signatures. Nothing else. As I turned it over, I noticed the Dollar Tree price sticker still affixed to the back $1. The room seemed to tilt slightly as I stared at that price tag. $1. That's what I was worth to them. $6,200 versus $1. The disparity was so stark, so undeniable that I couldn't even process it at first. My heart raced and my face flushed hot. My hands began to shake so badly that I had to put the card down on the coffee table. The generic holiday message blurred before my eyes, "Wishing you joy this season." This wasn't the first time I'd been an afterthought at Christmas. 3 years ago, they'd given Amber a trip to Miami while gifting me a scented candle. 2 years ago, it was a new laptop for her and a $25 bookstore gift card for me. Last year, she received diamond earrings, while I got a reusable water bottle with the logo of my father's golf club on it. But never had the difference been this extreme, this impossible to rationalize away. "What's wrong with you?" Amber's voice cut through my thoughts. She was still clutching her Gucci bag, but her euphoria had dampened as she noticed my expression. "Don't be dramatic, Rachel. You don't even like designer stuff." "That's right," my mother chimed in, looking annoyed at the interruption to their celebration. "We got you that nice sweater for your birthday, and you're doing well at your job. Amber needs professional accessories for her career." The nice sweater she mentioned had been a regift. I recognized it as one Amber had received from a brand partnership but didn't like because the color washed her out. The tags were still attached when my mother had handed it to me wrapped in tissue paper that still had, to Amber, written on it, crossed out with a pen. "Plus, you're so practical, honey," my father added. "You wouldn't want us spending that kind of money on you." That's when I overheard him murmuring to my Uncle Paul, thinking I couldn't hear. "Rochelle doesn't need nice things. She's practical. She'd probably just put the money toward her retirement account anyway." With trembling fingers, I opened the card again, and a folded slip of paper fell out that I hadn't noticed before. It was a handwritten coupon promising that I would help Amber move into her new apartment next month. They hadn't given me a gift at all. They'd given me an obligation, an unpaid task that would require me to take time off work to help my sister settle into her new life. I looked up to see my entire family watching me, some with discomfort, others with impatience. They were waiting for me to do what I'd always done, swallow my feelings, smile, and say it was fine. They were waiting for practical, reliable Rochelle to maintain the family harmony. "Open mine next," urged my grandmother, trying to diffuse the tension. "I have something for both my granddaughters." But I couldn't move. 29 years of being second best crystallized in that moment into something hard and immovable in my chest. I remembered all the times I'd made myself smaller to make room for Amber's big personality and bigger needs. All the times I'd worked twice as hard for half the recognition. All the sacrifices that had gone unnoticed and unappreciated. The truth hit me with stunning clarity. Nothing I ever did would be enough. No achievement, no sacrifice, no amount of being the responsible one would ever make them see me as they saw Amber. I would always be the afterthought, the safety net, the practical one who didn't need what everyone else did. I stood up slowly, my movements mechanical. "Rochelle." My mother's voice held a warning note. "Your grandmother wants you to open her gift." "I'm sorry, Grandma," I said quietly. "I need some air." I walked to the entryway closet and pulled out my coat, scarf, and boots. "You can't be serious," my mother said, following me. "It's Christmas morning. We still have presents to open." "Don't ruin Christmas," Amber called from the living room. "You're making everyone uncomfortable." I turned to look at my family gathered around the tree with their expressions ranging from annoyed to confused. None of them understood. None of them even tried. "I've spent my whole life trying not to ruin things for everyone else," I said quietly. "Just once I wanted to feel like I mattered as much as Amber does. Just once." My father stood up, his face reddening. "That's not fair, Rochelle. We've always treated you girls equally." The absurdity of that statement in the face of the $6,200 bag versus my $1 card might have made me laugh if it weren't so painful. Instead, I slipped my feet into my boots and zipped up my coat. As I opened the front door, I heard my mother's final attempt. "If you leave now, you'll regret it. Family is more important than presents." I looked back one last time. You're right. Family is more important than presents. That's what makes this so heartbreaking. Then I stepped outside into the cold December morning and closed the door behind me. The winter air hit my face like a slap, shockingly cold but somehow clarifying. Snow had fallen overnight, covering our suburban neighborhood in pristine white muffling sounds and making everything seem clean and new. I started walking, not even thinking about my car, still parked in my parents' driveway. I just needed to move to put physical distance between myself and that house. My breath clouded in front of me as I trudged down the sidewalk, the only person out on Christmas morning, while everyone else was warm inside with their families. With each step crunching in the fresh snow, I felt simultaneously lighter and heavier. Lighter because I'd finally stood up for myself. Heavier because of the grief settling in my chest. I walked past houses decorated with lights and inflatable Santas. Through windows, I caught glimpses of other families opening presents, laughing, celebrating together. The life I thought I had, the life I kept hoping would magically appear if I just tried hard enough, just achieved enough, just gave enough. Without planning to, I found myself following a route I had walked thousands of times as a child and teenager. Past the elementary school where teachers had praised my academic achievements, while my parents focused on Amber's participation in the school play. Past the high school track where I'd set a district record in the 400-meter dash, an event my parents had missed because Amber had a cold that day. Past the public library where I'd spent countless hours studying while Amber got private tutoring at home. I finally stopped at Westfield Park, the small community green space, where I'd come whenever I needed to think as a teenager. To my surprise, someone was already there, an older woman sitting alone on a bench that had been cleared of snow. She looked up as I approached, her face lined with years, but her eyes sharp and kind. "Escaping family drama too?" she asked, with a knowing smile. I hesitated, then sat down on the other end of the bench. "Is it that obvious?" "Only one reason people end up alone in parks on Christmas morning," she said. "I'm Margaret, by the way." "Rochelle," I replied, surprising myself by adding I just walked out on my family's Christmas. Instead of looking shocked or judgmental, Margaret nodded. "Sometimes that's the healthiest thing you can do. I spent 20 years trying to please a family that was never going to appreciate me before I learned that lesson." For the next hour, as snowflakes occasionally drifted down around us, Margaret shared her story of setting boundaries with toxic family members and building a life filled with chosen family instead. She spoke about the guilt she initially felt, the attempts her family made to pull her back in, and the freedom she eventually found. "The hardest part is accepting that they may never change," she said. "But you can change how you respond to them, what you accept from them, and what role they play in your life." As we talked, my phone vibrated repeatedly in my pocket. I finally pulled it out to see 17 text messages and 5 missed calls. Not one of them expressed concern for my well-being. From Mom: "You're embarrassing us in front of the family. Come back immediately." From Dad: "Your behavior is completely inappropriate. We raised you better than this." From Amber: "Way to make Christmas all about you for once." Mom's crying now. "Are you happy?" And then, most tellingly, another text from Amber with a selfie attached. In it, she was pouting dramatically while holding up her new Gucci bag. The message read, "Since you're being so dramatic about your Christmas gift, can you loan me $800 for rent next month? I spent my savings on everyone's presents and my first paycheck doesn't cover everything." I showed the text to Margaret, who shook her head in disbelief. "The audacity," she said. "But you see what's happening, right? She's showing you exactly what you're worth to her. She believes you exist to fulfill her needs." "They all do," I said quietly, the truth of it settling into my bones. I've always been the reliable one, the support system, the safety net. Never the one who needed or deserved support myself. "So, what are you going to do now?" Margaret asked. I considered my options. I could go back, apologize for making a scene, and fall back into the same patterns that had defined my entire life. Or I could do something different. Something for me. I scrolled through my contacts and called my best friend from college, Taylor, who lived about 2 hours away. "Taylor, it's Rochelle. I know it's Christmas, and this is completely out of nowhere, but I just walked out on my family, and I'm sitting in a park with no car and nowhere to go." Before I could even finish explaining, Taylor interrupted. "Text me your location. I'm on my way." When I hung up, tears filled my eyes for the first time that day. That said, Margaret gesturing to my phone is what family is supposed to sound like. She stood up, brushing snow from her coat. "I should get back to my partner and our dogs. We have a quiet Christmas tradition of Chinese food and classic movies." She hesitated, then added, "You'd be welcome to join us if your friend doesn't come through." I thanked her, but assured her Taylor would arrive. We exchanged phone numbers, promising to meet for coffee sometime after the holidays. As Margaret walked away, she turned back once. 25 years is a long time to be in second place, Rochelle. But you have so many more years ahead to put yourself first. Taylor arrived at the park 90 minutes later, jumping out of her car and wrapping me in a fierce hug before I could even stand up from the bench. "I've been waiting for this day for years," she said as we drove away from my hometown. "I'm just sorry it had to happen on Christmas." Taylor had been witnessing my family's treatment of me since college, always gently suggesting that it wasn't normal or healthy, but never pushing when I defended them. Now, as I explained everything that had happened that morning, she listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding as if pieces were finally falling into place. "You're staying with us through New Year's," she declared, non-negotiable. "Josh is already setting up the guest room and his parents are excited to have you for dinner tonight." That's how I found myself celebrating Christmas with Taylor's family, who welcomed me without question and included me in their traditions as if I'd always been part of them. They asked about my promotion, congratulated me sincerely, and even had a small gift for me, a tradition they maintained for all of Josh's and Taylor's close friends. It was during those quiet days in Taylor's guest room, surrounded by genuine warmth and caring, that I made a decision I needed professional help to unpack 29 years of family dynamics and learn how to establish healthier patterns. When I returned to my apartment after the new year, the first thing I did was search for therapists who specialized in family trauma and boundary setting. By February, I was sitting across from Dr. Lydia Wells, a compassionate but straightforward woman who helped me see my family situation with new clarity. "What you're describing is a classic golden child divided by scapegoat dynamic," she explained during our third session. "Your sister was designated as the special one who could do no wrong, while you were cast as the self-sufficient one who needed nothing. Neither role is healthy, and both serve to maintain your parents' preferred family narrative." "But why?" I asked. "Why would they set things up that way?" "Sometimes it's about the parents' own unresolved issues," Dr. Wells said. "Sometimes it's about which child better reflects the image they want to project to the world. Often parents don't even realize they're doing it. But intentional or not, the damage is real." Over the next few weeks, I began implementing small but significant boundaries. I declined the weekly Sunday family dinners I'd been attending faithfully for years. I let my parents' calls go to voicemail, sometimes returning them when I felt emotionally prepared rather than dropping everything to respond immediately. I stopped answering Amber's financially manipulative texts altogether. The reactions were exactly as Dr. Wells had predicted. First came the guilt trips. "I guess your family just isn't a priority anymore. Mom, we're not getting any younger, you know. Someday you'll regret this time apart. Dad." When that didn't work, they tried love bombing. "We miss our special girl so much, Dad bought tickets to that musical you mentioned wanting to see Mom." Then came the flying monkeys, family members recruited to reach out on their behalf. "Your mother is really hurt by your distance lately. Whatever is going on, can't you just apologize and move forward, Aunt Susan?" Through it all, I maintained my boundaries calmly and consistently, just as Dr. Wells had advised. I joined a support group for adult children of emotionally immature parents. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with, because my family had demanded so much of my time and energy. I started investing in myself, taking a photography class I'd always been interested in, and planning a solo trip to Seattle. My apartment once, a Spartan space that reflected my practical nature, slowly transformed into a home that expressed my actual tastes and interests. I painted an accent wall, deep teal-hung artwork that spoke to me, bought the slightly expensive bedding that made me feel luxurious every night. With each small change, I felt more like myself, a self I was just getting to know after years of contorting to fit the role I'd been assigned in my family. 3 months after Christmas, I was scrolling through social media when I saw a post from my father that made my blood run cold. An announcement that they were selling their vacation cabin in the mountains, the one place from my childhood that held purely happy memories for me. The property they had always told both Amber and me would be partly yours someday, a promise I had actually believed. The caption explained why, excited to help finance our beautiful daughter's dream destination wedding in Santorini this fall. Every father wants to give his little girl the perfect day. I called Dr. Wells immediately and scheduled an emergency session. "I thought I was making progress," I told her, pacing her office. "But this feels like I've been punched in the stomach all over again." "You are making progress," she assured me. "The fact that you're feeling the pain rather than suppressing it is progress. The fact that you recognize this as another example of the pattern rather than making excuses for them is progress." "But what do I do now? Do I confront them? Do I just let it go?" Dr. Wells considered carefully before answering. "What do you want to do?" The question stopped me short. What did I want? For so long, what I wanted hadn't even been a consideration. I had accepted whatever was offered, grateful for any scraps of attention or affection. I want them to see what they've done, I said finally. Not so they'll feel guilty, but so they'll understand why things have to change. I want the chance to tell my truth even if they never accept it. Dr. Wells nodded. Then perhaps it's time for a controlled confrontation. But this time you'll be prepared and you won't be alone. 2 days later, I received a text from my father. Family meeting at our house this Saturday at 2. Your presence is required. This distance has gone on long enough. It was the opportunity I'd been waiting for. With Dr. Wells's help, I prepared thoroughly. We role-played different scenarios. I wrote down talking points and specific examples of the pattern I wanted to address. I arranged for Taylor to drive with me and wait outside as moral support. What I wasn't prepared for was arriving at my parents' house to find not just them and Amber, but my grandparents. 2 aunts, an uncle, and 3 cousins all sitting in the living room arranged like a tribunal. What is this? I asked, stopping in the doorway. We're all concerned about you, my mother, said her voice syrupy with fake concern. We wanted everyone here to help you see how your behavior is affecting the whole family. Amber sat beside my mother on the couch, her eyes red and puffy as if she'd been crying. We just want our sister and daughter back, she sniffled. My father gestured to an isolated chair positioned to face everyone else. Have a seat, Rochelle. We all need to talk. For a brief moment, I considered walking out again. This wasn't a family meeting, it was an ambush. But I remembered what Dr. Wells and I had discussed. This was my chance to speak my truth, regardless of whether they were ready to hear it. I took out my phone and texted Taylor. They brought the whole family. I might need you sooner than expected. Then I sat down in the designated chair, meeting their united front with calm resolve. Before we start, I said I'd like to understand what exactly we're discussing today. My father cleared his throat. Your recent behavior, your distance from the family, your hostility toward your sister, and your apparent ingratitude for everything we've done for you. Amber sniffed loudly. You've been so jealous and resentful lately. I can't even enjoy my success because you make everything so difficult. We've been listing all the sacrifices we've made for you over the years, my mother added, lifting a notebook. College tuition, orthodontics summer camps, your first car. We've invested so much in you, Rochelle. I looked at the faces around the room. Some, like my grandfather and younger cousin, looked uncomfortable with this approach. Others, like Aunt Susan, were nodding along with my mother's words. I appreciate you sharing your perspective, I said carefully. Would you be willing to hear mine? Of course, my father said, magnanimously. That's why we're here. I took a deep breath and unfolded the paper where I'd written my key points. I love you all, and I know you believe you've been fair and supportive parents. But for my entire life, I've been treated as less important, less valuable, and less deserving than Amber. This isn't about one Christmas gift or one incident. It's about a lifelong pattern. My mother immediately began to protest, but I held up my hand. You've had your turn to speak. I'm asking for mine now. Surprisingly, she fell silent. Calmly and clearly, I outlined specific examples of the disparity in how we were treated. The college funds, the birthday celebrations, the emotional support that was abundant for Amber and rationed for me. I explained how I'd been cast as the practical one, the strong one, the independent one, not as genuine compliments but as justifications for giving me less. I described the Christmas incident in detail, emphasizing the symbolism of the $6,200 bag versus the $1 card. And it's not just material things, I continued. It's about value. Amber's feelings, needs, and accomplishments have always been centered while mine were treated as secondary or ignored entirely. When I finished speaking, the room was completely silent. I looked around at their faces and saw a range of reactions. My mother looked furious. My father seemed bewildered, as if I'd been speaking a language he didn't understand. Amber was crying again, but her expression was more angry than sad. It was my mother who broke the silence. This is absurd. We've never favored either of you. You're twisting normal parenting decisions into some kind of conspiracy against you. I knew she'd make this all about her, Amber added. She's always been jealous of me, and now she's trying to turn the family against me just when things are finally going well in my life. My father leaned forward. Rochelle, I think you're exaggerating. Yes, we gave Amber a nice bag for Christmas, but that was one occasion, and we've helped you plenty over the years. I was prepared for this reaction, but it still stung. I looked down at my notes, gathering my thoughts for a response when a voice spoke up from the side of the room. She's not exaggerating. Everyone turned to look at my grandmother, who had been silent until now. At 82, Eleanor Anderson was still sharp as a tack and respected by everyone in the family. I've watched this happen for years, she continued, her voice firm despite her age. Robert and Diana, you have consistently favored Amber over Rochelle. I've tried to talk to you about it privately many times, but you always dismissed my concerns. My mother's face flushed. Mom, that's not fair. No, what's not fair is how you've treated your daughters, Grandma Eleanor replied. Rochelle has shown remarkable strength and resilience despite being treated as an afterthought in her own family. And frankly, I'm not sure you've done Amber any favors by spoiling her the way you have. Amber gasped dramatically. Grandma, I love you both equally, my grandmother continued, looking between me and Amber. But the way this family has been functioning isn't healthy for anyone, and I've decided to do something about it. She reached into her large purse and pulled out an envelope. I've amended my will. I had previously split everything equally between your parents, who would then presumably divide their inheritance between you girls. But I no longer trust that to happen fairly. My father sat up straighter. Mother, this is hardly appropriate right now. It's exactly appropriate, Robert, she countered. I've established a trust for Rochelle that will provide her with her share directly. Amber will still benefit from what I leave to you and Diana, but this way I know Rochelle will be treated fairly at least once. The room erupted into chaos. My parents protested loudly while Amber burst into fresh tears. My uncle tried to calm everyone down while my cousins watched, with wide eyes clearly fascinated by the family drama unfolding before them. In the midst of it all, my phone buzzed with a text from Taylor. Everything okay in there? It's getting loud. I stood up, bringing the commotion to a halt. This isn't about money or inheritance, I said firmly. I don't want or need anything from any of you except basic respect and acknowledgement of how I've been treated. Grandma, I appreciate you speaking up, but that wasn't necessary. It absolutely was necessary, she replied. Sometimes people only understand when there are concrete consequences. I looked around the room at my family members, some angry, some confused, some beginning to show glimmers of understanding. I didn't come here to punish anyone or to get anything from you, I said. I came to speak my truth and to set boundaries for how I'll allow myself to be treated moving forward. I love you all, but I won't participate in these dynamics anymore. With that, I walked to the door, pausing only to hug my grandmother, who whispered in my ear, I am so proud of you. Outside, Taylor was leaning against her car, looking concerned. That sounded intense. How did it go? I took a deep breath of the fresh spring air, feeling oddly lighter despite the emotional confrontation. It was exactly what needed to happen, I said. For the first time in my life, I stood my ground with my entire family watching. Whether they heard me or not, I heard myself. And that's what matters. In the immediate aftermath of the family confrontation, reactions were mixed. Some family members reached out privately to express support or apologize for never noticing what was happening. My cousin Jack admitted he'd always felt uncomfortable with how differently Amber and I were treated, but hadn't known how to address it. Aunt Susan, initially defensive of my parents, called a week later after reflecting on past family gatherings through this new lens. I think I owe you an apology, she said. I've been complicit in this without realizing it. Others doubled down. My mother sent a lengthy email detailing all the ways I was being unfair and ungrateful. My father called, repeatedly alternating between anger and bewilderment. Amber blocked me on all social media, then unblocked me to send passive-aggressive posts about toxic family members and setting boundaries with jealous people. Throughout it all, I maintained the course Dr. Wells and I had mapped out. I responded to supportive messages with gratitude, but didn't engage with attempts to pull me back into unhealthy dynamics. I limited contact with my parents to brief informative calls once every few weeks. I focused on building my life according to my own values, rather than in reaction to my family's expectations. Summer brought unexpected developments. My financial literacy blog, which I'd started as a therapeutic outlet to share what I'd learned about managing money without family support, began gaining traction. When a popular finance website featured one of my articles about breaking financial dependence on toxic family members, my readership exploded overnight. You've clearly touched a nerve, my editor said. There are a lot of people out there dealing with similar family situations. Inspired by the response, I developed a 6-week financial literacy program specifically designed for young women from dysfunctional families. The first online class filled within days with participants ranging from college students to women in their 50s trying to establish financial independence for the first time. Teaching these classes became the most fulfilling work I'd ever done. Each woman's story reflected aspects of my own experience, and watching them grow in confidence and capability healed something in me too. By helping others break free from financial dependence, I was further cementing my own independence. In September, 6 months after our confrontation, I received an unexpected text from Amber asking if we could meet for coffee. After consulting with Dr. Wells, I agreed to see her at a neutral location. She looked different when she arrived at the cafe, less polished than her usual Instagram-ready appearance. Her designer clothes had been replaced with simple jeans and a sweater, and she wore minimal makeup. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, fidgeting with her coffee cup. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since everything." "I appreciate you reaching out," I replied, keeping my expression neutral. Amber took a deep breath. "I started seeing a therapist. After everything that happened with you and then Grandma changing her will, I was really angry at first. But my therapist helped me see that my anger was covering up a lot of uncomfortable feelings." She looked up at me, her eyes filling with tears. "The truth is, I've been trapped in this role of being the special, fragile one. Mom and Dad put so much pressure on me to be perfect to validate their parenting by succeeding in the right ways. When you stood up to them, it was like you broke a spell. It made me question everything. I hadn't expected this level of self-awareness from my sister, and it took me a moment to respond. That must have been difficult to recognize." She nodded. "It's been really hard. But it's also freeing. I realized I've never really stood on my own 2 feet. I've always had Mom and Dad rescuing me, making decisions for me, financing my life." She hesitated, then added, "The way they treated you was wrong. And I was wrong for participating in it and benefiting from it." "Thank you for saying that," I said quietly. "I also need to tell you something," Amber continued. "I quit my job at Vogue." "You what?" That was genuinely surprising. She'd been talking about that job as her dream position for months. "I was miserable there," she admitted. "I only took it because Dad pulled strings to get me the interview, and Mom was so excited about having a daughter in fashion. But I hated the work, the culture, all of it." "What will you do now?" "That's partly why I wanted to talk to you," she said, looking nervous. "I'm trying to figure out who I am when I'm not being who our parents want me to be. And I need to learn how to support myself financially. When I saw that article you wrote about financial independence, I thought maybe you could help me." It was a turning point neither of us could have predicted. Over the next few months, Amber and I rebuilt our relationship on new terms. I helped her create her first real budget, open appropriate investment accounts, and apply for jobs that genuinely interested her, rather than impressed our parents. She helped me recognize and address lingering insecurities from our childhood. "You know," she said during one of our weekly finance sessions, "I always envied you." "Me?" I laughed in disbelief. "For what?" "Your independence. Your clear sense of purpose. The way you built your life on your own terms, even when no one was supporting you. I always had everything handed to me, but I never felt secure in any of it, because I knew I hadn't earned it." My parents' journey took longer. After several more months of distance, they finally agreed to family therapy. The first sessions were tense and unproductive, with my father maintaining they had done their best, and my mother frequently dissolving into tears about being attacked as a parent. But slowly, with the therapist's skilled guidance, cracks appeared in their defensive armor. My father began to recognize how his own upbringing in a family that prized appearance over substance had shaped his parenting. My mother confronted her tendency to live vicariously through Amber while taking Rochelle's support for granted. "We did love you both," my father said during a breakthrough session in November. "We just didn't know how to show it equally or appropriately. We thought we were responding to your different personalities, but we were actually creating and reinforcing those differences." My mother's realization came more gradually. "I think I resented your self-sufficiency," she admitted one day. "You reminded me of myself before I gave up my career to focus on family." I pushed you away because facing your independence made me question my own choices. These insights didn't instantly heal our relationship, but they created space for something new to grow. We established clear boundaries and expectations. I remained firm that reconciliation would be a slow process requiring consistent effort and change on their part. As December approached, bringing the anniversary of the Christmas that had changed everything, I made a decision. I would host Christmas at my apartment this year. Not a full family gathering, but a small celebration with clear intentions and boundaries. "Are you sure about this?" Taylor asked when I told her my plans. "It's a big step." "I'm sure," I replied. "This needs to happen on my terms in my space, and I want you and Josh there too, as my chosen family." I sent invitations to my parents Amber and grandmother Eleanor, establishing clear parameters, no elaborate gifts, no comparisons, no bringing up past conflicts. Instead, each person would bring a small, thoughtful gift for their assigned recipient, with a focus on meaning rather than monetary value. The day arrived with a mixture of nerves and hope. My apartment was modestly but warmly decorated. A small tree stood in the corner, adorned with ornaments I'd collected over the years, each with personal significance. Simple but elegant place settings awaited my guests at the dining table. My grandmother arrived first, giving me a fierce hug. "I'm so proud of the woman you've become," she whispered. My parents came next, visibly nervous, bearing a dish of my favorite childhood dessert that my mother had made from scratch. Amber arrived last with her new boyfriend Sam, a kind special education teacher she never would have dated during her pleasing our parents phase. Dinner was initially awkward but gradually warmed as we focused on present connections rather than past hurts. We shared accomplishments from the year my growing financial literacy program, Amber's new job at a nonprofit. She genuinely cared about my father's decision to scale back his work hours to pursue long-neglected hobbies, my mother's return to part-time teaching. When it came time for gifts, I explained the new tradition. This year we focus on thoughtfulness rather than expense. The gift should reflect genuine understanding of the recipient. My father went first, handing me a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter acknowledging specific moments he'd failed me as a father, alongside a promise for the future. "I also donated to the scholarship fund for your financial literacy program," he added quietly. "I'm proud of what you're building." My mother gave Amber a journal filled with prompts for self-discovery, a recognition of her journey toward authenticity. Amber gave my grandmother a series of cooking lessons they could take together, honoring Eleanor's love of culinary arts and family connection. When my turn came, I presented my parents with a framed family photo I'd found and restored from a rare day when we had all been genuinely happy together. A reminder of what's possible, I said, and worth working toward. The final surprise came from Amber. She handed me a familiar designer shopping bag. Inside was the Gucci handbag from last Christmas. "I can't accept this," I said immediately. "It's not a gift," she explained. "It's a request. I haven't used it once because every time I look at it, I remember how much it hurt you. I thought maybe you could auction it for your program. Turn something painful into something positive." The suggestion was perfect. A symbolic transformation of what had once represented inequality into a resource for helping others achieve independence. Later that night, after everyone had gone and I was tidying up, I reflected on the year's journey. The auction of Amber's Gucci bag ultimately raised enough to fund 3 full scholarships for my program. My relationship with my family was still a work in progress, but built on more honest foundations. Most importantly, I had discovered my own worth independent of anyone else's validation or comparison. I picked up the $1 card from last Christmas, which I'd kept as a reminder, and placed it alongside the thank you notes from my first class of financial literacy graduates. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. One represented a lifetime of being undervalued. The others represented the value I'd created by finally valuing myself. True worth, I had learned, doesn't come from designer labels or family approval. It comes from self-respect, healthy boundaries, and the courage to speak your truth even when no one is ready to hear it. Sometimes walking away is the first step towards something better, something real. And sometimes what you leave behind makes room for everything you deserve to find. Have you ever had to walk away from a relationship or situation that wasn't serving you, even when it was difficult? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening, and remember you deserve to be valued not just for what you give, but simply for who you are.